I am John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us around the world, they say, okay, we know where Canada is. How about British Columbia? It's on the west coast, right? Right, it is. A beautiful, beautiful province, and lots of trees and lots of nature. And today we have a very, very interesting guest. His name is Pete Turner. And Pete is not just a storyteller, he's a force of lived experience and truth. A former U.S. Army counterintelligence professional, Pete spent more than 70 months, or 6 years nearly, deployed in combat zones and completed 1,000 missions outside the wire. We want to know what the wire is, and he'll tell us all about that. Working forced to face with locals, uncover the realities of war, which matters who could be trusted and what the truth ground is. Pete has about 1,500 episodes in podcasting. To date, Pete has interviewed astounding lineup of people, Nobel Prize winners, Medal of Honor recipients, Pulitzer Prize and Peabody awareness, PhDs, bestselling authors, culture, and I can go on and on and on and on and on. Pete, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, man. It's you have a big resume too, and so when you hear it read back to you, it's like, oh my God, who is this guy?
Yeah, that's what I said. So
I know, it's amazing. How did we do this, man? How did we survive this crazy life? And by the way, thanks for having me on your show. I know what it means to do this, and the time and the money that goes into these things. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I love it, Pete, as you do, and and I'm like you. I'm a storyteller. And I'm probably a little bit older than you. I'm going to be 85 on November the 1st. I say 85 years young. And so the other things that we have in common, obviously I was born during the war years in northeastern Holland, within 10 or 15 minutes of the border with Germany. Saw far too much that I should not have seen. PSD is still very much part of my life. I was in the drafted into the Dutch Air Force for 2 years, and Special Forces, and so I've seen some of all of this, and it's always been part of my life and my family's life. But your perspective is very, very interesting. So let's start with, tell us about, where are you originally from, and how did you end up in the U.S. Army, and then take us forward from there.
Yeah, I'm from California. I live in California now. I love it here. You're a West Coast guy now. It's just wonderful on this side, and where you live is gorgeous. We have so much geographic diversity, mountains, everything, right? So it's just it's a wonderful place to live. And I grew up in a great time, the 80s. Kids were free to go do things, kind of find our own way, and that was perfect for me. I had no plans of joining the Army, but I couldn't find a job after college. So I had this degree, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And I tried and I tried and I tried. And I thought I was going to get into TV radio. That took a couple of decades to sort out. But I didn't know what to do. And so finally, I'm like, I don't have any experience, so I can't get a job, and I can't get a job to get any experience. I guess I'm going to try the military. And that was how I got there. And it just worked out that, look, I know you know how this goes, but in the rearview mirror, John, everything makes sense. But if you look at it step by step, you're like, are you an insane person? Yes. But it all worked for whatever reason, like whether we opt into something that suits us or life pushes us in a direction, you bring the same tools to the party, you develop, you get better. And so I ended up being really, really good at war. I had no idea that'd be the case. I'm a happy-go-lucky guy, but I'm a really incredible warrior. And I would tell my friends back at home, I'm like, if you saw me working, you would not believe the guy that I am, because that's a professional version of me. And the happy-go-lucky version.
Exactly. How old were you when you decided to join the Army?
24.
24. So that's very young still. And take us forward from that Pete, because that had a major impact on your life, not only then, but also in terms of what you are now, today, and then looking back nearly 6 years of being involved in war settings, it certainly will have a major, major impact as it does on your life.
Yeah.
And from me, from the opposite perspective, I was one that was born in the beginning of the war, saw far too much, even at 5 years old, of dead bodies, and all of that sort of thing has an immense impact, and hunger and all the other things. And then the other part that people sometimes forget, respectfully, is they believe that if there is war, after the war is over, everything goes back to normal. Well, it doesn't. And it may take generations before people get back to a sense of normal. And those are people that are as civilians involved in war. And obviously the same applies as to, I have to tell you this one thing. On April the 12th, 1945, we were liberated by the Canadian Army as part of the Allied forces that landed in Normandy in June of 1944. And then the US, Canada, and the UK, at an immense cost of lives, landed in Normandy. The Canadians won north through France, Belgium, the west coast of Holland, and then where we lived in the extreme northeast, within 10 minutes of the border. I remember it well. We had gone through hunger and the coldest winter on record, nothing to eat. My sister, my brother, and myself, every morning we would go with gunny sacks into the railroad yards, pick up anything edible and burnable. And the reason that we did as kids, because the Germans wouldn't shoot us, they boot us one, and the following morning we'd be back. And then when the Canadians liberated us in northeastern Holland, and fed us right behind our house was a schoolyard, maybe 100 feet away from it. And every morning we would go to the soldiers, and they fed us bread with cheese and butter, and the cheese and the butter was bigger than the bread, and we had gone through hunger and starvation. And we all knew each other, called everybody Johnny, although we didn't speak the language, but we did, really. And so it had such an effect on me that I knew when I grew up, I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And I did. When I was 24, I started with nothing, go to British Columbia. That was the one dream, to go to Canada. The other one is to build a lumber mill. I did both of them, and that was in July of 1965 when I left Holland to go to Canada. But the war is still very much part of my life as well. And then I was drafted into the Dutch Air Force when I was 18. And then again, Special Forces, and getting trained for all the stuff that you will tell us about it. And so that's kind of a bit of my background.
You know, it's interesting. When I was in Germany, so my first assignment was Germany. This kind of advances the story. I had graduated from spy school, and we weren't in a time of conflict. So I didn't know what to do with myself. I was highly competitive. I was an athlete in a place full of a bunch of brainiacs, and I'm still plenty smart, right? But if you're physical and you're not afraid and you're in good shape, you outcompete your peers in the regular army, So
Exactly.
I stood out, and not in a good way, because I was pretty open about my desire to destroy all peers,
Yeah.
But we did a thing called, you know about this for sure, but there's a Volksmarch called the Nijmegen Volksmarch. It's 100 plus miles over 4 days. And I did it because I thought this would be a really cool thing to do. It's Europe. I get to walk around, get to go with a bunch of my army friends. It was wonderful, right? I had no idea, because I was still just 24, 25. I was in 25 then. I didn't know. I mean, as much as we know about World War II, we don't know. And so you walk through these villages, and everybody, Nijmegen is this international thing. There's a lot of civilians. There's also this big military presence, and it's the Dutch military, you have the German military, you have the French military. When we would walk through town, the Americans, and often in a field where there's a statue to the airborne troops that landed on that day.
Correct.
And you're like, oh man, this happened here. And you see these people. And when we walk through, we got to understand, everybody, these villages are packed. Everybody's out there. They're waving flags. They're inviting you into their home. They're inviting you into their bar. And they're screaming like I'm a New York Yankee. And they're just like, yes, yes. And I'm like, well, what the heck is going on? And our unit was all intel guys. We all got strung out because they weren't in very good shape overall. They could make it. So I would often be by myself or with my buddy Brian, and people would be going bananas. And then we would, they would just be wonderful to us. Girls would come and kiss us. And then we would exit that village, that hamlet, and behind us would be the Germans a lot of times. And then you would hear, and they made it obvious. They did not. Everybody's having, the Swedes are having a great time. The Norwegians are having a great time. But boy, when those Germans came through, this is 50 years later, they got it. They got it from that hamlet. They did not like them, still hadn't forgiven them, and it was amazing. So when you talk about that and like the Canadians swooping up, I don't remember the Canadians specifically being there, but if they were, they would have got the same kind of treatment because you all hadn't forgotten what had happened. And it was still like things for me that were 50 years ago were in the 80s or the 70s. And I remember those things. I just saw a picture. My cousin sent me a picture from the 70s, and I'm like, I remember that barbecue.
Yeah.
Now you make it a war. Oh my gosh, you never forget.
So the interesting part about it, Pete, is that Nijmegen is Holland. And during the war years, what you're referring to, I think it was in 1944, they dropped a lot of hundreds and hundreds and thousands of soldiers into that region and to fight about the access into strategic elements of the German army. And it was a very, very bloody battle, and everybody remembers it well. I was in the Air Force close by, and then I spent some time in Baden-Baden on the other side on the German border when I was in the Air Force. And, the amazing part about everything, though, Pete, is that, as I said, I was born in 1940, and then when I was in the 50s, 1950s already, there was already interaction between the Dutch and the Germans across the border, because the facts are that it was the dictator Adolf Hitler that drove all these people into places that they should not have gone and did. And it started all, in 1939 when Hitler decided that Poland should become part of Germany. And at the same time, if I look back at my family, which is so critically important, my mom and dad were married in 1938, very quickly had a boy and a girl, and then my mother was pregnant with me in the early 1940, and then my dad was called up into the Dutch army because that was obvious that Hitler was going to go further into Western Europe. And the last time that somebody saw him was before Hitler decided that Holland didn't capitulate fast enough, and they bombed the center of Rotterdam, and thousands of people died. And the last time they saw my dad was when he was in Rotterdam. So for 5 years, they would not know if he lived or died. He came back after the war, but having been in a war setting, as you well know, PTSD was always part of his life, and he never really talked about it, and it always stayed with him till the day that he died. Amazingly, though, Pete, is that I always look at it this way, and that's the experience that I had with it. We all were victims, the German side as well as the Dutch side as the other. It was that leadership that drove them into the war that cost hundreds and thousands and millions and millions and millions of people's lives. And but today the borders are wide open and people interact with each other. And so you and I both have seen war from different perspectives. If we now look at the world, I look at the European East with the Ukraine and Russia is an example. And again, you have opinions about it that I like to hear. And then at the same time, the Middle East, the challenges. And then looking around the world really is that, and you refer to that, having for me lived here in Canada for nearly 60 years, and that I do a lot of business on both sides of the border in the United States. And every time I fly around, although I'm also a pilot, but when I fly around commercial flying throughout the United States and Canada, I look outside and I say, it's paradise. It is paradise. We are so lucky, so fortunate. And then we are very, very close as Americans and Canadians. And I believe the power is between Canada, the United States, Mexico together. I see them working together. I've seen them working together for tens and tens of years. And so, although there are a few challenges now, but they will again get together because they are so immensely powerful. And prosperity is part of us, but first and foremost, we are friends on either side of the border, and that part is important.
Yeah. I mean, we are a good. We have so much advantage by being in North America. The distance from Europe in terms of any kind of real threat. We have our problems and everything, but yeah, there's huge advantages, and we have this long history of trade and very good relations. And that's not true in every country, right? A lot of countries have contentious relations with especially if there's disparity between the size of the United States and its economy, and then Canada, which is an enormous place but doesn't have that many people. So yeah, we seem to do that dance pretty well so far. But as well as I do, things can change fast. I don't think that they will, but it's a thing. And I'll say this about conflict. In most of the world, instability is the norm. It's like this rubber band that's stretched, and to hold that rubber band takes enormous faculties. It takes enormous foundations to hold that rubber band is stretched in the stable position. We're so fortunate to have stability. For the most part, nothing bad happens in almost everybody's life in between North America, really, but especially Canada and the U.S. If there's 420 million people between our two countries, there's just a lot of wonderful lives happening day to day and for extended periods of time. Yes, we have car crashes. Yes, there's murder and all that kind of thing, but and they're all tragedies. But the reality is a woman who's disabled. Let's say she's got dyslexia and it's horrible. Can go out and start a business and be a CEO, and no one's going to say anything about it other than "Go get him, girl." And that is remarkable compared to a lot of the rest of the world. So yeah, we have a wonderful place. And when we always focus on the negative, we lose track of just like, hey, we are empowered here to do whatever we want to do. You guys have a slightly different version of that than us, but they're both capable, workable versions. And so I don't like to get caught up like, oh, here we go. Here comes the edge of the cliff. Like, or we're going to take off and fly somewhere, and we're going to be great. We're going to do the next thing. And so let's not always jump off the cliff for crying out loud.
You see, the benefit that
when you live somewhere else and it's horrible, you understand what beautiful is.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt you, but I get so excited about this because it's so much part of my life. And saying, Pete, you've seen the opposite, and I have seen the opposite, and it benefits me, and I say that respectfully, that a lot of people in North America have not seen the horror of war and what it does to countries and what it does to its population, its young people, and not making a judgment of it, but war of any sort in any place. And you've been in Iraq, you have been in the Middle East, you've been all over the place, and war has been very much part of your life for nearly 6 years. And then in my case, I was born there. It is still very much part of my life. But it gives me the perspective of comparing how lucky we are here and what it can be and what it should be. And I believe that it is. So we interact with our friends on the other side of the border. That includes, and if I look at Canada, the United States, and Mexico, all the things that we have collectively for being a very, very influential bloc of a continent, which we have been and will be and are in the world, is very, very important for our population, but also for the rest of the world. All we have to do, I look around the world, I look at Russia and that dictatorship with Putin, and we know everything that's going on there. I look at China, I look at Iran, I look at North Korea, and I can just go on and on. Venezuela comes to mind, and all those places where dictatorship, controls the populations. Then by comparisons, we can complain about this, that, and the other thing, but in the end, the United States has been a democratic rule for nearly 250 years, and it's based on the foundation is the Constitution that starts with "we the people," and that's where it is. That's where it will be, has been for 250 years, and the same is democratic rule in Canada. Is that we are friends, we need each other and complement each other, and and subsequently, looking back by the comparison, I look and I say how lucky I am to be here with me and my family and my kids in North America and Canada.
Yeah, it's very, very fortunate. We're going to complain about what we got, and we're going to disagree about it, but we get to disagree peacefully. If you're in a tribal society, politics. Look, but here, I learned a thing in Iraq from one of the generals. My job was to meet warlords, generals, that kind of thing, very influential people, and talk to them. And there was this very problematic, I guess you would call him a warlord, a minor warlord, but still a warlord. And we were worried about him getting out and running around and doing things again. And the general was like, Peter, he's exactly where I want him. He's doing exactly what I tell him to do. And if he not, I will kill him. And you're like, wow, okay, that's how they do politics. He did another one of these lessons where he said, they just don't want that guy to run for office. Like, yeah, but they blew up his house. Like, no, they blew up a bomb in front of his house. They sent a message. They knew he wasn't home. If they wanted to kill him, he'd be dead. They just don't want him to run for office. Peter, it's politics. You guys don't play like this. We do. And so you learn. You're like, oh, wow. Politics is different in different places. And they don't mind putting a bomb in your driveway and blowing it up. Because he was right. Technically, they didn't blow that guy's inside of his house up. They blew up the front of it. And they didn't really harm him but they sent a very clear message: don't run for office. And he didn't, and he got to stay alive. So we don't do that insanity. I mean, look, we can have some political violence from time to time, and obviously here in the U.S. we've just had some, but it's a different thing when that's abnormal. There, it's part of the normal cycle. Is how do you influence people? Well, they use murder. They use threats of murder. They use communication saying they're going to destroy someone's. They're very brutal with all that. And again, we don't have that here. So yeah, right. When we see that perspective, we start to understand like what all this stuff means in our context, and we appreciate it more, I think.
Yeah. So with all the experience that you've had being in the Army Special Forces in particular, so you say that you spend time outside of the wire. What does that mean? Yeah. And I know what it means, but just for our guests that are watching us from around the world.
When there's a lot of ways to do espionage. My way is to be in a tactical environment and to leave the encampment that I'm on and go meet the locals, go find the warlords. My job is to find the most dangerous, nasty people, but also the most influential, the business leaders. And I've got to make friends with those guys. I can't do that if I'm only on my camp. Now, I'll bring them on my camp. Even the worst person, I'll bring them on our camp because I want them to see the wonders of America. And we have air conditioning and ice cream. And these guys are like, I haven't seen ice cream in years, So I use the access to the off-the-camp area to gain favor with people that we're interested in talking to, whether they're an adversary, which is fine. That's part of my job. My job isn't I'm not supposed to be safe in my job. My job is to expose myself to danger so that I can meet these people. So whether they're adversarial or they're willing to work with us or they just love us, that's my job, is to find those folks.
The key, though, for you to be successful, you have to be a good communicator.
Yeah.
That's the key. So because very quickly in settings like that, if you are not, it can have an adverse effect in a hurry, because you're not dealing with situations and saying, F off and blah, blah, blah. No, it goes beyond that. It's, so delicate. And obviously communication skills have been one of your strengths, hence podcasting and all the other things that we're going to talk about has been a foundation for you. But, like what I do in my life, although I grew up speaking Dutch and dialect actually before that, so I grew up in northeastern Holland where you speak dialect. If I speak in a dialect in the rest of Holland, you say, who's this guy? He's a farmer out of there, you can't understand him. And he's not very smart, likely. And so then I was drafted into the Air Force, and then I had to learn to speak High Dutch. So so when I was 18, and then slightly after I was 20, slightly more than 2 years in the Dutch Air Force, and then when I was 24, I left for Canada, and then I had to learn to speak English because I didn't learn to speak English, but the point that I'm making is this one, is that first of all, I'm a storyteller. I've always been a storyteller. I'm a good presenter. I'm in demand. I wrote books. I'm working on my 6th book. And obviously, I'm an active, as you are, podcaster as well. And I love it because that's part of my life. That's part of me.
Yeah. That communicating thing is so big. My degree is in mass communication. I also have a master's degree that applied to what I did. And who knew you could get a master's degree in some random thing and have it apply to espionage? But I got a degree in organizational management. So I can look at an organization and say, you have this input and you want that output. I don't find it. And so I would task myself to go out and look at what we were doing. And now I've got to communicate their reality to the locals' reality. So I'm talking to the Army, who's supposed to be my friends, but they don't trust me. And then I've got to talk to the locals, the warlords, and I've got to communicate to them, like, what the heck are these Americans doing? And keep in mind, and John, I know you'll get this. It's like I'm a salesperson, right? And all of these Americans have already come before me, and they've promised things and delivered, promised things and failed. They've said they're going to blah, 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 all this noise. I've got to get right through that noise, and I've got to say, I'm the guy you need to trust. And then I have to deliver,
Exactly.
It's not easy.
No.
But if I don't build trust, if I don't communicate that, if I don't elevate the risk of the trust, like if I just have a low grade trust and rapport, okay, that's fine, but I'm not going to get anywhere. I've got to find ways to advance and exchange trust so that they know that I trust them I trust them with my life, and they trust me with their life. And I can keep them safe from whatever the Army's thinking about. Because sometimes the Army gets things wrong. They knock on the wrong door or whatever. So all of that communication is clouded by all of the Americans, and I'm just trying to get a clear signal. And when I was able to do that, I could do big, big things.
But that's the key, Pete. That makes you then unique among many, because you cannot afford to make a mistake. Because if you make a mistake, everything crumbles and comes apart. I feel so strongly about this communication skills. I wrote a book about it that came out in the end of July, $1 billion communication skills. It's not a book how to become a billionaire. You can. I'm not saying. That's not what this is about. What made these guys who they are, and what we will find in virtually every single case, is they became or had communication skills, but they developed them, and that is what made them successful. And so the reason that I wrote the book is to take through that experience and saying, this is what anybody can do, but a lot of people, it's not being well educated really in our schooling system. Communication skills will become critical, the foundation of your lives. And so that's why I wrote the book. It's a bestseller on Amazon, actually, but I feel very, very strongly about that.
Yeah, it is it's a challenge to do these things well. It's also easy to think that your communication's working better than it actually is. And this is again, this is where my communications training taught me to go, is my message getting through? Are they even prepared to receive my message? Am I getting their message? And so like that delicate nature. And so I would say a little bit of a challenge to what you said, but I think in a constructive way here is my path was fraught with errors. I had to make all kinds of mistakes so I didn't make those mistakes anymore. And I got better and better and better and better at it. And so, and you're not saying, I don't think we disagree here. You have to make the mistakes so you can learn how to avoid them in the future. And sometimes it's beneficial to not know everything. So if I always say, don't go out Dutch a Dutchman. Like, in America, we're always like, here's what they do culturally. Don't do that. Don't out Iraq and Iraqi. Let them be smart. Let them tell you how wonderful their place is. Let them be emotional about Samara or whatever place they're at so that they can tell you the wonders of it. Let them feed you their wonderful food.
Exactly.
So that way you can communicate more clearly. All these other things of communication, when we don't accept that, when we're always trying to be the smartest person, when we can't be taught anything, that is a poor way to communicate. Even if you know something, allow them to be smart. Just allow them to be smart and just say, wow, you taught me something today. Even if it's a white lie, and really you should be able to learn something, you still say, wow, you know what? I didn't realize that. Like when you taught me today about your time in World War II, I was able to relate and bring us closer together because we talked about knife making. That's
Exactly.
because I listened and we communicated well and we got to a bigger place because of it.
Exactly. And the key on communication skills, I didn't always have it. In fact, for 10 years I spent in Toastmasters, starting from to acquire better communication skills because I was the worst case of being self-confidence and all the other things. And so when I started with Toastmasters, what is that all about, Toastmasters? Look it up on Google. It's very, very interesting. It teaches communication skills. But first and foremost, what is the most important part about your communications? Be a good listener. That's the first one. The second one, to speak on your feet. And the third one is to evaluate somebody else's comments. And then the last one is to prepare presentations that you would do for others. But the first one is be a good listener.
Yeah. Let me, and there's so many of these early things, like when you enter this cone of decisions on how you're going to communicate, the joke I always make, and I'm going to do my bad German because it's kind of, it's like a Germish. I'm trying to communicate clearly. So the worst way to find out where the bombs are is to walk through town going, wo ist the bombs? Wo ist the bombs? Ich haben bombs? Like, what I'm saying, everybody, is I'm saying, where are the bombs? And I'm acting like a German because that's terrifying. That's not how you do that.
No.
The thing you want, the deal, whatever it's going to be, you don't ask for it the second you walk in. Look, if you see a beautiful woman and you want a shot at something with her, you don't say, wow, you're a hot hunk of ass. Let's go have sex right now. Like, you don't start there. You might get there, but you have to like build that communication path so that you're allowed to ask for that thing.
Yeah.
And when you get better, it becomes shorter. You also know when to quit and say, that's not worth my time. I'm going to go somewhere else. You get better at the whole process. But yeah, like, don't start off with the thing that you want because that doesn't work in real life unless you're ordering a pizza.
Yeah. Gain respect first in all the things that you do. So the other part is that you've been so active in, you had 1,500 episodes on podcasting. I believe to date. Pete has interviewed a lineup Nobel Prize winners, Medal of Honor recipients, Pulitzer, Peabody Awareness, PhD, bestselling authors, culture icons, and on and on and on and on. So you've been very, very active in podcasting or a form of podcasting. Tell us about that. What brought you to that? And obviously I'm in that field as well, and I love it. Share with our guest your ideas about podcasting and especially now with the media, because we can sit here and the rest of the world is watching us.
Crazy.
Unbelievable. And it's only on
I'm
its
so lucky.
infancy.
Yeah. Right. No, absolutely. It's crazy. I'll show you my rig. I've got these incredible cameras and these tiny. This is a tripod. There's a camera. I was in San Diego yesterday with my technically three cameras set up, and I set up in a guy's house, and we had a show. John, you and I can go meet anybody in the world now.
Yeah.
And just as long as they're willing to have a conversation, people say yes to this stuff more than ever before. And when you say it's at its infancy, like think about that. A 2-camera shoot live. We didn't do live. I could have done live. That's possible. I just don't want the pressure. But I released that show the same day. And I'm like, here's this incredible conversation I had. And went down to, who doesn't want to go to San Diego and meet someone new? And here's the magic of this, right? If I come to your house to do a show, let's say I go up to Canada and I pop in, which is, again, I can fly and be there in a couple hours.
Yeah.
I can go into your house. I will now be a guest in your home.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, Pete, you're my guest, as you guest on my show. And it's an amazing dynamic, and it knocks down barriers. So I love it. I've done over 2,000 episodes, and I've done so many of them face to face. Not all. This is a very convenient way to do it. So I do this style of thing myself. But I wanted to tell stories. I'd had so many experiences that I wanted to share them, and I get to share them all the time. And it's amazing. And then people relate to my stories in a way that informs me and how I see life. That relation of experience it's incalculable how valuable that is. It's so incredible.
And if you look at podcasting in particular, Pete, relatively new, so like I started interacting, first blogging about 6-7 years ago, and then from there and then transit to a local television station, and mainly interacting with local or regional persons of interest. And then COVID came, so we couldn't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. And then I had this apartment that I'm in today, and it's saying, well, maybe we should put a studio in there. And then watching TV, CNN, ABC, BBC, and all the other ones, and I see them interviewing people, 1, 2, 3, 4, from all over the world, and saying, that's the way to go, virtual. So we did that and started working then with Podmatch, has done a great job of bringing people together from around the world that have different interests and different or similarities. And so that's what we do now. And I think you are my 470th podcasting where I'm the podcaster, and then I've done about 250 where I'm a host. The other thing that I do different with my podcast is that I release them within 2 hours, and I do not edit them, so they are what they are. That's what I do. That makes my podcast uniquely different from most other people, and I like it. Very active on YouTube. I think we are close to 1 million subscribers right now, and it's still growing immensely, and I love it because we can talk on all kinds of different topics all over the world.
I love it, man. That's just here's the big secret. I started the show. I didn't know what it was going to be. And if you're thinking about starting a show, don't make your show something if you're not sure what it's going to be. Allow it to change, because my show took me in a place I could never imagine. And it's remarkable. What I do is the same thing I did when I was a spy. I meet people. I go to their homes. I leave my house. Not always, but often, right? I meet people every single day, which is just by default a powerful networking machine. You and I now know each other. Maybe we do business. Maybe I introduce you to somebody. Maybe you introduce someone to me. Who knows? Maybe nothing happens, but we have that opportunity, and all these seeds get planted. And so what folks think about, they're like, how do I monetize my podcast? And I'm like, slow down, make your podcast valuable, understand why it's valuable, increase the value, and money will come. It'll find you because you're already doing something valuable, and you'll be able to exchange that value for money or enrichment of life. If you never made a dime and you were as enriched as I am by talking to you and you being on my show, because I want you on my show, that's honestly enough. And then again, the money will find you. If you're doing quality work, the money will find you. I'm just telling you. And I've got over 2,000. I quit counting at 2,000, and I'm over 2,000 now, and I'm not stopping. I meet more people all the time. John, it's you, and you know this. It's just remarkable, like how what else can I do in life that has so many positive facets to it? It's incredible.
So the interesting part about it, Pete, is that, and I do the same as you. I love it. I enjoy it. And then I do have a number of other businesses that I do. And then, I'm a presenter. And then a lot of people say to me, how do you do all this stuff? And I'm 85 years old within a month. 85 years young, I call it. And then I have to show you another book that I did. I'm working on my sixth one. This one here, Living Young, Dying Old. That's a picture of me. I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. And so I started doing that and saying that as you get older, quality of life is critically important, not age. Is that, and I do now go to the gym probably 4 days a week, and I'm training hard. So in 2017, 2018, I was in the gym and somebody came up to me, and I was already in my 70s. They say, hey, have you ever thought about bodybuilding and competing? I said, me? Really? Yeah. I said, okay, why not? So I did. So I became second in bodybuilding, third in physique in northern BC. That then moved me to the provincials, and then to the nationals, and then to the Arnolds. And then COVID came. And now at 85, this is a picture of me today. I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder. I'm training for when I'm 86, and then want to go back to the Arnolds again. But the key is quality of life, diet, mental activity, and physical fitness. It's all about that. And quality of life is all important. Simply what I'm doing, I'm not suggesting anybody else should do this or become an Olympian, but at least stay active. Know what you put inside your body. You only have one life to live, and your body is critical to stay fit and healthy.
So I want to say something, and this is like spy-related stuff and the communication, right? So when you first sat down, the first time you held your hands up, I said, wait, those aren't the hands of an 85-year-old. You've got muscle in your hands. And I certainly would have commented on that without knowing. And then also you got that book behind you there where it's like, and I'm like, wait a second, that guy, I know that guy lifts weights. And so I can state the most obvious thing to you. Hey, do you lift weights? And you were going to open up, pow, and you'd be like, oh my God, let me tell you about it. And then the best version of you is going to come shooting out, not the lying version, not the obfuscating version. You're just going to be genuine, right? And I saw that by seeing your hand for a second. Look on someone's bookshelf, catch something. You don't have to know what it is. You didn't say, hey, tell me about that picture of your dog. And then they'll go, oh my God, now you're in the emotion state. And I'm big on this, and I don't know how well this translates for everybody, but I'm big on affect over effect. So here's how affect works. If you can get that girl to like you, that's an affect. So like maybe you do things and then but if you write her 15 love letters, does not mean she'll love you, right? So it's not the love letter, it's the emotional response, the affect that is delivered with that. And so when I ask you about your hands and you start telling me about weightlifting, I sit back and I let you talk. And I just listen and I pay attention and I ask the most obvious questions so that you can become passionate. And if you're passionate, I'll rise my passion with you naturally. And then we will have an open, engaging, collaborative conversation, the likes that like you can't do by having a design. We don't need a paper. We don't need a plan. If I can find an affect that unlocks you, I got you.
Exactly. And it's spontaneous, right? So this is who I am, and this is what I do. And as you do, your experiences going all the way back to when you were 24 and you joined the Army and you went through all the things that you did. It is the foundation of experiences and all the worst of circumstances that became extremely valuable in your life and are today. And so hence the same is with me, is that experience and going through the cycle is that's what people say to me. I have all these companies and people say, how do you do this? And this, I'm throwing another thing at you that I have not really talked about, we can have a whole discussion about, but academically I was not a success story in Holland. I failed grade 3, I failed grade 7 3 times. And they said, what are we going to do with this guy? And some people, and I love my parents and they loved me, obviously. Some people said, send him to the mentally challenged school. You said, no, we're not going to do that. Let's make him a furniture maker because he's not smart enough to do anything else. But I always knew I was just as smart as the other ones. I was just different. And so what I'm diving at is just telling you this, is that I was already in my 60s when I picked up a book called Driven to Distraction. It was about ADHD and dyslexia. That's me. And I said, oh my God, that's me. And then the more I found out about it, it's a superpower. And so if people say to me, how do you do all the things that you're doing? I say it's ADHD, that's how I do it. I just kind of throw that in as something that is interesting. The other part that you said, and I wanted to make a comment about, people said to me, how do you do all the things that you do? And you're so successful, blah, blah, blah. How do I become successful? I always say this, success will find you. The question becomes, are you ready to act on it? And a lot of people are not. But success, if you keep doing the right things, attitude, avoid the negative, passion, whatever you do, is part of my life, is you give it 125%, work ethic is critically important, and what will follow is success. And even now at 85, I still get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed, obviously, and then I always think I'm late, and that's how I live, and I give it everything that I get. And as soon as I walk outside, I say it's paradise, because I have experienced the opposite, and that is the benefit, right?
I agree with everything you said, and I do a lot of things too. How do I do it? I manage it, and I love it, and I can't wait to, when I'm done with this, I'm already inspired by talking to you. I'm going to go sit down and get some work done. And look, I can always do a better job. I can always improve, but that's always going to be the case. Can I just, and I'm big on this, John, production over perfection. You crank your show out, 2 hours later, it's on the web. I'm the same way. Like,
absolutely.
I'm going to be live later on today having a show, and it's going to go out, and we're going to have a conversation. I don't edit conversations. I have this wonderful thing.
It is what it is.
And so it is what it is, right? Now, look, if there's some kind of technical glitch, I'll do the guest a favor of cleaning that thing out or something.
Yeah.
But that's the exception. And I'm only doing that as a courtesy to that person, you know?
I had it at one time, Pete. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm so excited about this. And so I was sitting in this, and I was introducing my guest, and all of a sudden the building started shaking. We had a small earthquake, 4.7 or so. And then they said, should we take it out? And I said, no, we leave it in. No. Because that's what I want to do. It is what it is. And it is genuine from the heart.
I've also had an earthquake show.
Yeah, I like it.
I had an earthquake show. It was great.
So we can go on for another hour, actually, but as we're getting to the end here, so how do you book your guest for your
Simplest way ever. So understand that my show is very well established, and so a lot of it books itself. And so if I want somebody, I ask. That's the main thing. No matter how famous they are, I ask. I'm going to ask someone very, very, very famous today. I'm going to send them a note, and they'll say yes or no. Usually they say yes. I have a sense for these things that look, 2,000 episodes, you develop a sense. But I'm just going to ask. I'm just going to show up and be like, will you come on my show? And a lot of times, and it's all about just asking. It's there's nothing to be afraid of.
Exactly.
Don't ever borrow the no.
No.
Because they'll tell you no if they don't want to. And
do you go visit
no
them, Pete, or do you bring them into studio setting?
Depends. It depends, right? If they're willing, I'll always, and if I'm capable to do it, I'll always try to go to them. I'll even go across the country, right?
Right.
But I don't have a budget to just fly all over the place, right? So if I can find a reason to make it happen, I will. But if they're in California, if they're in Arizona, if they're in Washington, I've done shows all over the place live and in people's places. So I like to do it as often as I can, but the convenience and the cost of this style is better. But if that person, Okay, so I've had so many times where I've asked someone and they said, "Oh, it's funny that you ask. We just had a meeting, decided that I need to go on podcast more, and you're the first person to ask because I ask." And so that's it. Like, just ask people. It's complicated. Besides, inside of that, you have to communicate that ask in a way that makes sense. And so, when you write down the words, and here's the thing, John, I believe in this. I write the words every single time. I don't cut and paste anything. Even if I write the same words, I write it in a way that is like, this is me really communicating with you. And even if it's better for my workflow to have it canned and to automate it, I don't want a workflow. I don't need a workflow. I need human flow. And so that's where I put my effort, is in human flow, and try to figure out how to relate to someone rather than sending something that I don't give 2 seconds of thought. Like, no, I'll write. I'll take what does it take me to write a 50 or 100 word email? Does it take me 2 minutes? I just pound it out, bam, and off it goes. But I've thought about every word, and I've changed it. I've massaged it to what it needs to be. I'm not spending a lot of time on it, but also I'm putting humanity into it.
So I want to ask you another question, is that what's a common mistake, in your opinion, that podcasters make?
They get too precious with what their show is and what it needs to be and how perfect it needs to be. You just keep going. If you make a mistake, you go, that was a mistake. I've had all kinds of shows that stink for a lot of reasons. Bad comms, bad signal, bad sound. I was bad, they were bad, whatever. Who cares? It's an at bat. You struck out, and then you move on to the next one. You just keep going. Your heart's always going to break a little bit when you don't do as well as you want to. But you also don't know what the other person's going through either. Maybe you're the thing that day brightens their day. And so I always spend a second or two trying to talk to that person, try to find a way to brighten their day on my show. Or I'll talk to the audience and say, hey, pay attention. This is really different. Like, you might enjoy this. And so I spend time doing that. I don't think people spend enough time putting humanity into their show. I see a lot of, look, honestly, I see a lot more on YouTube, things that are clearly AI, and I want nothing to do with it. I don't want you to type in some prompt, do as little work as possible to put a show out that may or may not be valuable in terms of its accuracy. I'm not interested in that. So if I get a whiff of AI, I won't ever listen to it. I'll never, ever listen to it. I want to see real people having real conversations. And I'm prepared to be bamboozled by how good real people might be when they're actually fake. But I don't have any time for a lack of humanity.
No. And I think that's the key for me, is that be who you are. And then, and then I'm interested, I'm fortunate enough to have gone through all the ups and downs along the way, as you have, for since 1945, and 80 years. And and I love life, and I love North America, and I love topics, and I'm interested in people. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, Pete, do you have a website? How can people get a hold of you or get information on you?
It's pretty simple. Just type in Pete A. Turner. I come up. I'm not hard to find. I'm on Facebook, but primarily I'm on X. My YouTube channel, again, Pete A. Turner, or Break It Down Show. That's the name of the show. We put out shows, 5 times a week, probably, sometimes 3, sometimes 5, depending on how hard I'm working on that part of my life in that week. But there's always something. So yeah, Break It Down Show, Pete A. Turner. If you have questions, you need my help with something, I'm glad to help. I love, and I don't have to charge you money every time I help you. So if you're like, hey, would you charge me? I'll let you know if you get into the payment window. Be like, hey, anything past this point, this is going to cost you money. But I'm going to get you as far as I can so you can understand what you're doing and understand why you're paying me money. And I'm not pitching anybody anything. If I'm helpful, I'm helpful. And if not, no big deal. No harm, no foul. So
PeteATurner.com, Pete?
You can go there, but I don't manage that website anymore. I mean, it's my website. I don't find value in updating my website. So just Pete at breakitdownshow.com if you want to email me, Pete at breakitdownshow.com. And if you like what I do and you like what I'm saying and you want to chat, then do that. I'm not hard to find. I'm on LinkedIn. You guys can find me. If you want to get a hold of me, that's the way to do it. You want to watch my stuff, YouTube is the best place.
I love it. And then for myself, johnabrink.com, you can see all the stuff that we're doing, all the books that we're doing. The other thing very, very important for both Pete and myself is that If you like what we are doing on our podcast, Pete on his, Pete Turner on his, John Brink on this, my podcast, On the Brink, from around the world, then subscribe to us. I would appreciate it because it gives me encouragement. The same for Pete. Like it if you like it, or suggest to others. And if you have any comments, we look forward to hearing your comments. And Pete, this was an amazing, amazing podcast. That was a delight to have an interaction with you. So many things in common between us. And let's make sure we stay in touch.
Yeah, let's do that for sure. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for everybody who watched. It's awesome. I hope I'm helpful to you all. Yeah, and just go check out John's show. He has 1 million subscribers, you guys. Subscribe.
Thanks, Pete. Take care. Bye-bye.